2019, but it's expected to rise in 2020 due to the COVID-19 case. And also it's rising, and the debt is staying that high because the South African government needs to pay a lot to ensure that not that many people live anymore in poverty, to reduce that, but also to reduce the inequalities. Also, there is a reduced global competitiveness because of the inefficient state-owned enterprises and also the spending pressures. When we then look economically, South Africa is a really highly developed economy with an advanced economic structure. So it's one of the leading African economies when we look at the continent. And they are home to 75% of the largest African companies. But still, the economy is expected to fall with nearly 6% in 2020, also due to COVID-19, and an expected growth of approximately 4% in 2021. But the poverty rate is still 57% in 2014, which is very high. That is also still a consequence of the apartheid. So there is still a lot to do in that country economically seen to really reduce that rate. And also it's one of the most unequal countries in the world, which will be further discussed in the social factor of the microenvironment analysis. But the richest 10% of the population, they have actually 71% of the net wealth, and it was only in 2015. It stays around that number, but it still needs to be tackled.
If you look at the social environmental aspect in South Africa, we see that South Africa has a concerning unemployment rate of 28.7%. Compared to other countries worldwide, this is already very high, and it is expected to increase even more because of the corona crisis. What else keeps increasing is the inequalities in the country. South Africa is known as the most unequal country in the world, and this is expected to not change soon. The divide between rich and poor is unbelievably big, and only a small white minority continues to have prosperity. When it comes to the technological aspect, South Africa is investing heavily. They are already using drones and automation in agriculture, and looking at the attached graph, we see that their renewable energy capacity also keeps on rising. This thanks to a lot of investment being made. You might not say so, but Africa is actually one of the 20 world leaders in water technology. A lot of the products they have created so far can't be used in South Africa itself, but are mainly for other countries worldwide. There's also good news in terms of connectivity, because South Africa has one of the highest mobile cellular telephone subscriptions worldwide. On the other hand, still only 52% of the population uses internet. If we look at the environmental aspect, there is still a lot of room for improvement. South Africa yearly has more than 2,000 deaths because of bad air pollution caused by coal-fired power stations. More than 10,000 other people suffer other health problems. Another problem is that South Africa doesn't care a lot about the environment, knowing that only 5% of their population actually separates household waste. South African authorities therefore came up with a Good Green Deeds campaign in order to create environmental conscious. They also recently introduced the carbon tax, which is also a good initiative to limit greenhouse gas emissions. Then, for the legal aspect, we found that South Africa did a great job by introducing several different minimum wages, but when it comes to corruption, there is still a long way to go. South Africa is known for an extremely low reliability of police services, resulting in a lot of bribery. Luckily for companies, there is good news when it comes to protection of property rights and intellectual property. South Africa is known for having a strong protection of these, so as a company, you know that it will be difficult for others to copy your products, and if they would do so, they will be prosecuted. There are several challenges for duvel moordgat when they want to enter the South African market. One of the biggest challenges they face is AB InBev's monopoly. AB InBev alone has 87% of the market share. Knowing that the South African premium beer market is highly competitive, duvel moordgat will have a hard time entering the South African market. Adding to that, it is also very important to keep in mind that consumers are very price sensitive. When it comes to administration, there are also several challenges duvel moordgat will have to conquer. As I said before, South Africa is known for bribery and corruption, and this also happens when importing and exporting goods. If you think that it is the worst, it is also known that complying with government regulation is very burdensome, and worldwide South Africa has a bad reputation for this. From an economic viewpoint, South Africa also has a very high taxation level compared to other neighboring countries.
Hello, my name is Gaetan, and the next part of the presentation will be presented by me and my colleague Diogo, and we will discuss the alternative modes of entry, the competitive strategies, as well as the marketing mix of Duvel. Once a company decides to enter a new market, it has to decide on the mode of entry. On the previous slides, an analysis was made for the new market of Duvel. Analyzing the new market is the first step a company will have to make in order to know their costs, benefits, risks, and the potential of success. Based on the potential, a firm will then decide on a mode of entry, and the different modes of entry are listed here in this table, together with the disadvantages and advantages. Like we can see, the main difference will be the degree of the risk and the degree of control of the market or the market knowledge. The first alternative mode of entry that we will be discussing is the indirect exporting. During our market research, we found that South Africa has several ways of distributing, including the use of an agent or distributor. We need to make the remark that an agent or distributor are two different terms and have different meanings in South Africa. An agent is in legal terms a person who, for and on behalf of the firm, will introduce the firm to a third party, or they will conclude a contract with a third party on behalf of the firm. However, there are some key considerations when appointing an agent. As the South African business sector is relatively small, it is important to appoint an agent that knows the market well. Procurement might differ from sector to sector. South Africa is also a large country with 9 provinces. Often, agents only operate locally, so if the firm has the ambition to distribute nationally, they should look for an agent that is operating all over the country, or they need to appoint several different agents to cover the whole country. South Africa is known to be a trading hub for the whole sub-Saharan area. This is also important to consider when selecting your agent if you want them to trade in these countries on your behalf. To make a comparison with a distributor, as a firm, you will have to sell the distributor directly, and that's a strategy that Duvel already has as their current strategies. The main difference is that you will sign an exclusive distributing contract, similar to an agreement with an agent, but the price and delivery terms will differ as a distributor is a principal. The same considerations apply for a distributor like we have discussed for the agent.
Hi, my name is Diogo, and continuing the presentation of the competitive strategies, the second alternative mode of entry that it will be discussed right now is joint venture, which we think that is one of the options because some advantages are overcomes ownership restrictions and cultural distance. Starting a joint venture provides the opportunity to gain like new insights and expertise. It gives us access to better resources such as specialized staff and technology. All the equipment and capital that we need for our project can now be used because we are sharing, we are joining, and there's always a way to exit a joint venture eventually. Potential for learning and viewed as an insider, and less investment required, as obviously. In the lifetime of a divestiture and consolidation, a joint venture offers a creative way for companies to escape non-core businesses. And in case, like for example, the joint venture group project fails, you are not alone when bearing the costs of its failure, because we volunteer to share like the expenses, and we both of the companies will support the losses. Moving on to the disadvantages. Difficult to manage and illusion of control. Sometimes the lack of clear communication, as obviously a joint venture involves different companies from different horizons with different goals, and there is often a severe lack of communication between parts because due to this distance. Sometimes the partners can be unreliable because of the separate nature of a joint venture. As I said before, it is possible that the partners do not devote 100% of their attention to the project and become unreliable. It has a great imbalance because different companies are working together, and there is a great imbalance of expertise, assets, and investment, and this can have a negative impact on the effectiveness of the joint venture. Knowledge spillovers, and partner may become a competitor. Yeah. So moving on to the duvel valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable analysis, we can see that both global presence, unique products, strong brand image, social responsibility, marketing experience, and research and development are valuable. Okay. In terms of rarity, only the global presence is not rare. Okay, the rest of it is in fact rare. Inimitable, only the social responsibility and research and development is inimitable. The rest of it is not. And but not least, like the non-substitutable, only the research and development is non-substitutable. The global presence can bring some competitive implication, which is the parity. Unique products can bring temporary competitive advantage. The strong brand image brings us also temporary competitive advantage. Social responsibility, it will bring us unused competitive advantage. Marketing experience, temporary competitive advantage too. And research and development, competitive advantage. That's it.
Lastly, we would like to know what makes duvel special and how can they use their competitive advantages in the positioning on the South African market. Duvel is a leader in specialty beers. They try to create a certain feel and brand image for each of their beer products. Duvel has several ways to compete with the South African market, as they gain some awards, for example. The duvel beer is famous for their tulip-shaped serving glass, so this will stand out to the consumers. Also, as Belgium is famous for their beer, they continue to focus on this in the international market as well. For example, by using the hashtag Belgium Untold, so the consumers are more common to the Belgian beer culture. To enter the South African market, duvel can start to sell to retail customers first. The beer will be distributed in restaurants, hotel, and catering, like they are also doing right now in other countries. To ensure the quality of duvel, they design, for example, their own tap system to ensure the right way of serving the beer at the right temperature and with the right head of foam.
Hi, here I am again, Laurin. I'm going to talk about the Sepp Miller. It's the biggest competitor of Duvel Moordgat in South African market. So Sepp Miller is a South African brewery and is founded in 1895, but is operating since 1888 under the names of Charles Glasses and the Castle Brewery. And maybe you have known this competitor already because it merged with IB InBev in 2016 because they became the second largest brewery in the world, and it became too much competition to AB InBev, so they decided to merge together. Sepp Miller is originally located in Johannesburg, and is still there. Right now, they have like 7 breweries and 40 depots in South Africa, and they have like a market share of 87% in the South African market, which is extremely high. They produce right now, or they have a brewing